Pierre Levègue, 1955. French racing driver Pierre Levègue was 49 years old. He raced for the Mercedes-Benz factory team driving the revolutionary 300 SLR. On June 11, 1955, on lap 35 of the race, at the start of the Hinault Straight, Levègue collided with Lance Macklin's Austin Healey. The impact sent his Mercedes airborne, flipped over, and struck the barrier. The car exploded, sending the engine and front suspension flying toward the spectator stands like deadly projectiles. The fuel tank exploded, causing a fire, and flaming debris rained down on thousands of spectators. Levègue himself died instantly. The impact with the barrier broke his neck and crushed his skull. His body was thrown from the car and lay motionless on the track while marshals tried to control the chaos. But the most horrific thing was that the driver's death triggered a catastrophe in the grandstands. 83 spectators were killed and more than 120 were injured. This tragedy became the worst in the history of motorsport and changed safety regulations forever. Allan Stacey, 1960. British driver Allan Stacey, 26, competed for the Lotus team in the 1960 24 Hours of Le Mans. His Lotus 18 was light and fast, and Stacey himself was considered a promising driver despite having a prosthetic leg. But what happened that day was unprecedented. On the long straight of the track, where his car was doing over 125 miles per hour, 200 kilometers per hour, the unexpected happened. A bird, according to various sources, a seagull or a pheasant, smashed into the driver's face at full speed. The impact struck his head and effectively blinded him. Stacey lost control of the car. The Lotus veered off the track, flipped, and crashed with tremendous force into an embankment. The cockpit was destroyed, and the driver died instantly from a combination of head trauma and massive neck and chest injuries. His body was trapped in the wreckage and had to be extricated by rescuers. This death became one of the strangest in Le Mans history. The driver died not from a technical malfunction or an error, but from a bird strike. An accident that seemed improbable, yet still cost him his life. Bristow, 1960. In the same 1960 Le Mans race, another British driver, Bristow, died at the age of just 22. The young driver was considered very promising and had a reputation for being bold, but sometimes overly aggressive. He competed at the wheel of a Cooper T51, and his race also ended in tragedy. On one of the track's high-speed sections, Bristow lost control at approximately 140 miles per hour, 225 kilometers per hour. His Cooper veered off the road, ejecting him from the cockpit. Seatbelts weren't yet mandatory and weren't often used. The driver's body flew over the side of the road and struck the metal structures and barbed wire that lined the track at the time. The wire sliced through his body, causing horrific injuries. Bristow died instantly from a combination of multiple injuries and blood loss. The death of Bristow shocked drivers and spectators. It was a rare instance where the track's landscape and infrastructure caused such excruciating damage. After his death, organizers began to gradually phase out the use of barbed wire and considered new types of barriers. Jean-Louis Lafosse, 1981. French racing driver Jean-Louis Lafosse was 29 years old. He raced for the Rondeau team in the M379, a car considered the pride of French engineering. On the long Hinault Straight, his car reached 175 miles per hour, 280 kilometers per hour. But on this stretch, the slightest mistake was fatal. Lafosse lost control and the car crashed into the barrier at high speed. The impact was devastating. The front of the car was crushed, the cockpit was deformed. The driver's body experienced over 50 G, a fatal force. He suffered a broken spine, a crushed pelvis, and massive ruptures of internal organs. Medics pronounced him instantly dead. His body was trapped in the twisted wreckage and was only recovered several hours later. This accident demonstrated that even the new French cars couldn't compete with Porsche and Ford in terms of safety. Lafosse's death was a national tragedy, as he was considered France's hope in endurance racing. Joe Gartner, 1986. Austrian driver Joe Gartner was 32 years old. He competed in the 1986 24 Hours of Le Mans in a Porsche 962C for the private team Kramer Racing. Gartner was considered a highly experienced driver. He had competed in Formula One and endurance racing, and in 1986 his team had even competed for top spots. That night, around 2 a.m., on the long Mulsanne Straight, his Porsche suddenly lost control. The car, traveling at approximately 160 miles per hour, 260 kilometers per hour, veered sharply to the left and crashed into the barrier. The impact was so powerful that the barrier shattered and the car itself flipped over. Joe Gartner died instantly from a broken neck and multiple internal injuries. His body was trapped in the wreckage and the car caught fire. The cause of the accident remained unclear. Either a suspension failure or a mechanical malfunction was later suspected. Sébastien Enjolras, 1997. Testing. The young French driver Sébastien Enjolras was only 21 years old. He was considered a future motorsport star. He was preparing for Le Mans by testing a WR Peugeot prototype. On the long Mulsanne Straight, his car, traveling at 200 miles per hour, 320 kilometers per hour, lost downforce due to a detached rear end. The car rose into the air like an airplane, hit the barrier, and flew off the track. The impact tore the car to pieces, the fuel tank exploded, and the debris caught fire. Enjolras died instantly. His body was ejected from the cockpit and partially charred by the fire. This case shocked France. A young driver whose career was just beginning to be compared to legends died before his debut at Le Mans. His death prompted stricter aerodynamic regulations, with engineers revising the design to prevent cars from becoming airborne. Allan Simonsen, 2013. Danish driver Allan Simonsen was 34 years old. He drove for Aston Martin Racing in a Vantage GTE and was considered a veteran of endurance racing. On the third lap of the race, Simonsen entered the Tertre Rouge corner. His car went off course and hit the barrier with its right side at a speed of about 105 miles per hour, 170 kilometers per hour. The force of the impact directly impacted the cockpit. Simonsen was diagnosed with multiple rib fractures and severe internal bleeding. He was pulled from the car alive, but in critical condition. Minutes later, he died in the track's medical center. This tragedy marked the first fatality at Le Mans in 27 years. The Aston Martin team continued the race in his honor, but the atmosphere on the track was somber. Simonsen's death served as a reminder that even in the 21st century, Le Mans remains a deadly challenge. These tragedies reminded the world that speed and glory always come with risks, and that every lap could be the last. But it is thanks to the sacrifices of the past that motorsport has become safer. Mort was with you. Like and subscribe to the channel.